call the Green Bay Sex Offender Residency Board to meet. Roll call.
I have documented the members present.
Okay. Should I do the motion to adjust the agenda, or do I approve the agenda at this moment?
That could be part of the motion to rearrange and approve. I mean, you could do them both in the same motion.
All right. Okay, so if we're going to need a motion to move our first applicant, Stephen Bay, to the second position of the agenda, and then an approval of that agenda, if I have a motion for that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's just the three of us, correct? Yeah. Okay, and then I need an approval of the minutes from the December 18th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so our first appeal is going to be Maxwell Joseph Scott Odell. Is that you? Come on forward, please. Mr. Odell, this is your first time appearing before the board, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what we're going to ask is, we're going to ask you several questions. The first thing that we are going to talk about is what you were convicted of and how it came about. When you talk about the circumstances, we don't want you to list the victim by name or by relationship. And then we also are going to, at one point, maybe want to talk about any therapy or treatment you have received. You have the opportunity to do that in closed session or remain in public session. Do you have a preference?
I do not.
Okay, we'll remain in public session then. Okay, so the first thing is, so you currently live at 1411 Cass, and you're asking to continue to reside there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how long have you been living at that address?
Probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, and then how did you know that you needed to come before the board?
Well, I had to fill out the appeal form first, and then I got told to come up here, state my case and all that.
Sure, but who told you you had to fill out that appeal board?
I couldn't even tell you.
Okay.
I don't
Are you on probation here in Brown County?
I'm
Did that
not.
transfer?
I am not. I actually served the time for it, and they sentenced me down in Nebraska.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess the first thing we're going to talk about then is, well, why did you move to Brown County?
I moved up here to meet my family up here that I've never really seen twice in my life, and I was just needed a new start and a new life, and I knew they were up here.
Okay. All right. So then tell us, now I understand, so everybody else knows that you were convicted of a sexual offense in Nebraska. So tell us what the circumstances were, because each state kind of has their own, what they call their charges and whatnot. So if you can tell us what you did, what you were convicted of, and then how it came about.
I was convicted of attempted enticement by electronic communication device.
Okay.
It was messages over Facebook.
It was messages?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to help her with problems that she was having in school. And I was sitting in county jail for a post-release supervision violation from prison my first time. And I had a law enforcement officer come in and tell me I'm being charged with this, that I'll be going to court for it, and talk to my attorney. And it was supposed to go to trial, but I told my lawyer not to. I told him to speed it along, and she was going to testify. The person was going to testify on my behalf and not be charged with anything.
So I'm a little bit confused. So you were sending this victim messages on Facebook?
Just saying hi and trying to help her through school, and because she was being bullied in school, and they misconstrued the conversation, deemed it lewd and lascivious, Nothing sexual was said, no pictures, nothing was sent.
Okay. And so they sentenced you to 6 months in the county jail on that?
Yeah,
Okay. And no probation?
no probation.
Okay. So we have a representative from our local police department. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to confirm any of this information since it's from another state, but Lieutenant, do you have any information on this case?
I did read the criminal complaint. I can confirm what the charges were, but the criminal complaint does not notate any details of the offense.
Oh, interesting.
Nebraska must do things differently because it does not have a summation of the probable cause.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, does anyone have questions on that?
So you wrote in, how do you feel the sexual crime affected your victim? There wasn't necessarily what you're, in your mind, a victim, right?
But I believe you're correct. I don't feel like she was a victim because she was going to go up to trial, testify on my behalf, say nothing happened. Yes, she was 16 years old. I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but I don't feel like I've done any mental or physical harm to her.
How old were you at the time?
I was 21, almost 22, I believe.
Okay. And you don't recall saying anything sexual or anything like that?
Not that I can remember. My memory's kind of crap. I don't have a very good memory.
Okay.
How old did you think she was?
18 at least.
Okay, because earlier you made a comment that you were just really talking to her, helping her, because she was being bullied at school. So, I mean, I guess I would think if someone's in school, maybe they're under the age of 18?
I mean, you're a senior at 18 years old, so.
Okay. Any other questions, you guys? Okay. Any treatment? Did you have to, were you court ordered to do any types of treatment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are you working?
I am not. I am currently waiting for pacemaker replacement here in actually not too long. And then I'm gonna get back on my health track and try to get employed or get on disability, either one. I haven't really thought that far ahead yet. I'd like to get a job, but
Okay. So did you get released from prison and then you just immediately, or from jail and then immediately came here to Wisconsin?
well, I got out in August of last year out of prison. Then I lived in Nebraska City for a while. And I came up here on a whim to see my family and get to know them. And I've been here since.
Ever since?
Yeah, I've been up here since December 4th of last year.
Okay. So really, it's been more than 2 to 3 weeks. It's been a little over a month.
Not this residence. I've had to actually stay in a motel because I got told in Swamico that I couldn't live with my father because of the registry and all that stuff, and so I had to live in a motel. And then they kicked us out because apparently I was not. They were complaining about my dogs, and you were allowed to have 2 dogs. And I had 2 dogs that were complaining that they stunk, whatever, and we gave them baths every day. So they kicked me out, and I wasn't trying to sleep in my car because it was cold. It was negative, like 15 degrees outside, so I asked my grandma if I could stay there, and she had no problem with it. And I didn't really have a choice, either freeze or stay warm.
Well, I'm going to just say, I think we all have choices. I mean, I think the first choice should have been to find out if it's okay for you to live, rather than move all the way from Nebraska to find out if it's okay for you to live in our city.
I didn't.
That would have been the first step, the choice to make, right?
The laws of registry are different up here. I didn't know there was restricted areas because there's not those in Nebraska City, in Nebraska at all. The only restrictions we have is like I can't live within a school zone as of Ottawa County stuff. I didn't think to check that there's restricted areas to live in that I couldn't live in. You're right, I should have, but I didn't realize. I figured they were similar, but I guess I was wrong.
Do you guys have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
I got one question.
Yeah.
It says on here you have a fiance.
Yeah.
Okay, she's here in Green Bay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just gonna kind of tell you how I feel. So, I typically don't like to approve people from another county, let alone another state, because our own sex offenders in our community have a difficult time finding residents, right? So I typically do not like to approve those individuals. My one concern for you is you kind of have a pretty extensive background, a criminal background. I mean, at one point, I think I saw that you had 2 terrorist threats. Is that correct? You were charged with 2 terrorist threats?
I was charged with assault on a peace officer
Assaulting a police officer?
back in 2016.
Okay. I thought that I saw in 2016. Oh, yes, terrorist threats. Oh, and then it was amended to a 3rd-degree assault. So that's when you assaulted a police officer?
I didn't really assault them. I mean, I got in a low tussle with them in the county jail. I was a hot-headed kid. And I mean, I've talked to those officers since.
Okay.
I don't really have a problem.
Do you think you have an extensive criminal history?
I would say so.
Yeah. So my concern is, for me, why do I want to bring that to our own community, right? You have your ties to your grandparents, to your community here, but other than that, I have to look at protecting the rest of our community, right? Typically, we're here mainly, to decide about your sex offense. You're saying that there were nothing sexual in nature about it, but for some reason or somehow, what Nebraska is charging, it correlates to what our community says is a sex offense, correct? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so the electronic communication or enticement by electronic communication device, it can include either transmitting any lewd, lascivious, or obscene language, writing, or sound, or transmitting otherwise disseminates any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct, or offers or solicits any indecent, lewd, or lascivious act. So it can be any one of those options would qualify under the statute.
Okay.
Remember any of that happening?
No.
No pictures, no suggestions.
Nothing.
You just don't remember?
I really don't remember what was said in the conversation.
And so that's where I struggle right now, right? You don't really remember much of this incident that, again, I mean, it occurred back in 2016, 2018, right? Unfortunately, our own law enforcement can't get us the details where maybe we could read to try to find out what exactly happened to refresh your memory. So I really honestly am struggling to have you continue to reside here in Green Bay. But I have other board members here that.
Maybe there was someone who wanted to speak
Okay.
on his behalf.
Yep, perfect. We'll get there too.
Well, I agree with Heidi. If I knew more about, or if you were able to be more honest about what happened, I would like to hear that, but if you don't remember, I get it. So, we have enough problems in this community as it is with what we have to deal with on our own, and with our own law enforcement people. So, I'm leaning on denying right now.
done my time.
Uh,
I've paid my dues.
Yep, I understand that 100%.
I've had no problems with law enforcement up here. I've done everything I've been asked to, of registering with the sheriff's office, with the state building, all that. And I don't see why. This is my home now. I can't go back to Nebraska. I can't. I ain't got the money to.
Okay.
And I can't get a job up here.
Well, right now, we haven't made a decision. We're just telling you how we feel right now. And there's somebody who wants to speak on your behalf. Who is that?
Can I stand here?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm handicapped.
Sure. Are you okay with it? You'll just need to state your name. You don't have to move. State your name and address for the record, please.
Susan M. O'Dill, 1411 Cass Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I don't know how to tell everybody how much I love this boy. He has been so kind and so gentle and so loving. At first, the first instant I saw him, I thought, oh my God, he's so big. Last time I saw him, he was 9 months old. And he died when he was 16 years old. He dove in a pool and his heart stopped. He was 7 minutes without oxygen, which put him back probably 2 years in his growth. He's got a couple of other possibilities, not possibilities, a couple of other things that he needs therapy for that he was not getting at home. I have been on his case to make sure he makes his meetings. You don't do this if you don't have a letter, or you can't do it if you don't have a card or a letter or something like that. He's not drinking. As far as I know, he's not doing any kind of drugs. He lives in my home. He's been taking care of us. He came home on December 4th. And he's precious. Nobody gave him a chance. I thought maybe Wisconsin could give him a chance. He didn't know his parents, his alcoholic stepfather threw him out. His mother kind of threw him out. And then the Lord brought him home. I told him I'll kick his ass if he doesn't behave. I don't know what else to say about him. He's precious.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions for her, or you guys good? Okay. I truly appreciate what you had to say, but I still am. I personally am concerned about you staying here. I will tell you that's something that could potentially change my mind. I mean, again, we still have to vote, but I'm going to let you know where I'm coming from. Is if you were able to get us a copy of the criminal complaint so we can read that court transaction to find out what they said actually went on. If it's what you're saying, you were just trying to help this girl that, she was being bullied at school, well, that's a big difference. Versus if there were really pictures or suggestive actions that were in those messages, makes a big difference for us, right? Well, at least it makes a difference for me. So at this point, we have to take a vote, but I am not going to approve you to reside here. But again, like I said, you can always, if it does not get passed, you can come back and you could provide us that documentation, and maybe we could look at things at it in a different way. But again, we have other board members here who can make a decision too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What have you learned from this whole situation, and what would you change?
What have I learned?
Yeah.
To not automatically assume they're of age or above age. And one thing I would change, I wouldn't message her at all if I knew her true age.
Oh, you still use Facebook?
I do. I use it, go on Marketplace, I watch videos. That's all I do on there. I don't post anything. I don't really talk to anybody.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to move to deny.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so right now, all three of us denied you to reside at the 1411 Cass. Now, that does not mean you have to move to Nebraska, it just means you cannot stay at that address.
Where am I supposed to go? I don't know anybody else up here.
I'm sorry, that's not our concern. Like I said in my earlier vote, or discussion before the vote, if you can provide us a copy, get a copy of that criminal complaint and the transaction that happened in the court proceedings, get it to the law office, reapply, that would be considered new documentation. So we could consider you at that time.
I'm just supposed to sleep in my vehicle and freeze to death?
Again, sir, that's
Can't
not
help you with
our
that.
concern right now. Our concern is you cannot live at 1411 Cass Street. If there are other areas, I'm not telling you to live in the streets, there are other areas that you can go to.
Away from my family, away from people I know.
Yep.
You guys are denying my home.
Okay.
How would you feel if I denied your home?
All right, well, at this
Thank
moment,
you.
you're denied, and we're done. If you wish to apply again, you can submit another application. Okay? Thank you. All right, the next appeal we have is Stephen Bay. Mr. Bay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, so you are requesting to move to 602 Bond Street, apartment number 2?
I'm happy with it.
Okay,
I'm in jail right now, but I've lived there for 2 years.
okay. And you just got convicted, is that correct?
Yes, November 22nd.
Okay. So you have never appeared before the board, so we are going to ask that you tell us what you were convicted of, the circumstances surrounding the arrest, and you know, how the police got involved. When you talk about the offense, please don't state the victim by name or relationship.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
It was child enticement. It was on the website Reddit. I had been in a car accident in 2018, broke my back in 3 places, lost my fiance, kids, and I returned to heroin after that. And when the heroin wasn't around, I was so sick, I turned to meth. And then when I was stuck there for about 2 weeks at a time, and one of those times, about 12 days in, I did something totally uncharacteristic of me on Reddit, and was talking to what I thought was a 13-year-old female. It was actually a group of military officers in Hawaii, and then the U.S. Marshals came and arrested me. And when they took me to jail, I was in jail 3 days, just sick of myself for that, just disappointed and ashamed. After the accident, you know, I just wanted to die, and that coupled on it. So when I was released after 3 days, I made the decision to try to take a negative into a positive, turn my life around. I got off the drugs immediately. I've been clean since October of 2023. And what I'm trying to do now is use what I went through, the addiction, to help others that might be in a similar situation, going through trauma or addiction. At the end of the day, I'm so glad that it was an officer on the other end, and not actually a 13-year-old female. I think that's the best case scenario, and it brought me back to religion. I'm joined the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was just a very uncharacteristic, disappointing thing that happened. Unfortunately, that once again, a story of no drugs can do.
Okay. thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on that? I'm gonna ask Lieutenant. Okay. Lieutenant Allen, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bay, thank you for being honest about the offense. And so with that, you were not ordered to do any kind of sex offender treatment, is that correct?
I'm just starting the intake process with my probation officer.
Okay.
I've been referred to thinking for a change so far, and we are going to be getting to that in one of our next meetings together.
Okay, and I believe that was in an email from your agent, correct? Yes, okay. And then, if we talk about treatment, I apologize, do you wish to do that in closed session or remain in public session?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So if we talk about any treatment that you have received and you want to go into closed session, that means everybody has to leave the room. Otherwise, if we remain in open session, everyone will remain present.
Well, we just started open session.
Okay. So in your application, you did talk about receiving help at the Jackie Nitschke Center back in 2005.
Yes.
But then you said that when you were first arrested for this offense, which I think your offense date was around August of 2023, is that correct?
September, I think.
Okay. But you said that after you got out of jail, you went off all the drugs.
I never did meth again. I tried to kill myself with heroin one time in mid-October, and I OD'd, and it was after that moment that I would say I had a spiritual awakening, and that my life changed at that point.
Okay. But did you seek any outside resources to help you with your drug addiction?
No, I did it all through watching like Daystar television, reading the Bible every day, completely through the Bible and through God, and just like honestly every day I studied just the Bible. I watched TV programs all day long, videos on YouTube by various religious people, and I just really immersed in religion and Christianity, and that's what changed my life and got me off of it. And I used to have a drive to want to try to kill myself with the drugs. I just had a drive to want to better myself, stay off of them, learn more about God, and use that to help lesser other people.
Okay. So when did you actually go back into jail for this offense?
Well, I had to come back here January 3rd. And I was supposed to get Huber, but then they wanted me to wait until I came from the court. I was working at Green Bay Plastics, and I was hoping to keep my job. And honestly, I was doing the best that I ever have in life when I came here on January 3rd.
Okay. And is your employer still going to have your job for you?
I sure hope so.
Okay, okay. All right. The reason why I asked when you went into jail is just to know approximately how much time frame you had back out in the community where, did you have access to drugs at that time? Or a lot of people will tell us, oh, I quit using drugs, but, well, of course you did because you were in custody the whole entire time. So that's why I asked how long.
Yeah, I was on the community for about 14, 15 months.
Okay, perfect.
And I was attending the Kingdom Hall services on Sunday, services on Thursday night, And then we have a Bible study with two of the Jehovah's Witnesses one night a week. And, yeah, I replaced my whole fence structure. Those people have been so great to me and so loving. And I spent a lot more time with my mom, my dog, and yeah, I completely transformed my life
Okay,
over that time.
okay. You guys have any questions? Okay. Typically, we like to see that you receive treatment, but I understand that you just were sentenced. We got the notification from your agent that you're going to at least start out with a thinking for change. I'm glad to hear about, no drugs and alcohol usage. I don't have any concerns myself approving your address.
Me either. He's been living there relatively long time without problems, so
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, is
I'll
there a
second.
second? Okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Bay, you're approved to reside at the 602 Bond Street, Apartment 2. Please know that if you do move from that location, you will need to come back before the board.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Yep,
Okay.
all right. Okay, the next appeal is Mr. Kyle Stevens. Okay, come on up. Mr. Stevens, you are requesting to move to, well, actually, go ahead. Oh, I'm like, have a seat, no. 831 Elmore Street, Apartment A. But you've been here several times already, and it seems like you kind of hop between the 831, maybe 833 Elmore, is that correct? Okay, so the last time we saw you was back in 2013, and that's when you were going to be at the 833 Elmore.
Yeah, that's where I've been since.
Okay, so why do you want to move locations?
My wife and I aren't seeing eye to eye, and like, I'm just gonna go live by myself, but
Oh.
next door so I can still be by my kids and
Okay,
still be active with them and stuff.
okay, sure. Does anyone on the board want him to go back through his offense, or was the previous documentation sufficient?
Good.
Okay, yeah, obviously you have been here several times, starting back as far as 2008. You've complied with everything that we've asked. Every time you have come here, you have been approved to reside at the location. Like I said, you've stayed around that Elmore Street. So at this point, I have no concerns with you moving to the 831 Elmore Street, Apartment A, but we have the rest of the board.
Same.
Okay?
Same here.
All right, anyone wants to make a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, all in
Is that-
favor?
Is that address specific?
Address specific. I forgot that part. Thanks for reminding me, Counselor.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, you're good to go. Again, remember, if you're gonna move from that,
Yes.
you gotta come
I
back.
got you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, good luck. Okay, next is Mr. Jeffrey Cox. Come on up. Mr. Cox, you are requesting to move to 1139 Badger Street, correct?
Yes.
How come I don't have this?
I don't have that one either.
Right? You don't have that
No, I
one?
just have three.
That was one that I had changed.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to add him at the last minute, but
Oh.
you're-
Yeah. I have half of it printed out. So, okay. Here, you want to look at that one? Okay, so you've actually been coming back to see us, again, as far back as 2009. What is your current address right now?
1139 Badger Street.
Okay, so you've been living there basically illegally, is what you're telling us?
Yes.
Okay, how long have you been staying there?
Let me see. I was released from jail December 6th of last month. So at first I stayed with my aunt, then I moved in with my brother. He owns the house. So I've
Okay.
probably been there maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. All right. Is your brother going to be living with you, or are you going to be living alone?
I'm living with him.
Okay, okay. Did we get the brother? Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay. Do you want him to go over his sexual history?
I don't need
Or-
it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so you were here in 2009. We approved you to reside at the TLP. 2017, we were going to see you, but your agent had not approved your location at that time. Then you requested the South Van Buren Street, and then at that time, we approved you. So 2018 to now, what's been going on in your life?
I had lost my job, so I lost my place. I panicked. I went on absconded from paper. I ended up getting arrested in 2022. I was released last month, December.
Did your agent revoke you? Is that why
Yes.
you were in there for so long?
Yes,
Okay. So, did you go to jail or prison?
prison.
Okay. All right. And why did she revocate you?
I absconded and I had.
Oh, absconded.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I had new charges.
What were your new charges?
One was a failure to register,
Okay.
and the other was a felon possession of a firearm.
All right. And what did you get sentenced on those?
I did not.
Oh, you're still waiting?
Yeah.
Where are you in the process for that?
I have a court date this month, actually next week. It's like a status conference. I was offered 18 months. I had more than that time served, so it should be time served when it's all said and done. That's what the DA and my lawyer was talking about.
Okay. What, next week is your court date? Do you think you're going to get it settled at the status conference?
It won't be settled the next one, no. It's
Okay.
just a status conference next week.
Okay. Do you have a final conference scheduled or?
As of now, no.
Plea? Okay.
Like I said, I had a plea offer, so it's gonna be a status conference. I have to see my lawyer again before I actually go to court to see if anything changed or not.
Okay. I mean, I have reservations knowing that you might have to go back to prison, approving you.
Excuse me. In all fairness, I feel as though if I do get the approval here, it will help with my stability and showing the judge that too. So one thing they wanted me to do was get my own place.
Okay.
I just got to prison. I have no money.
Yeah.
So I'm actually working for my brother, and he's been having me. I've actually started going to these mental health groups that he has, that's been approved through the DOC. I've completed SOT, and I plan on going back to school too. I just finished paying off my student loans. The last $60 was just paid 2 weeks ago. Cause I already started school before I was arrested. But before I got arrested, I went for business management accounting. So there's a big difference between now and then. I know you all have a job to do. It's still a gamble because you got to see objectively. But now it's totally different. I have a son now too, so that's been my biggest game changer. Cause this last time I sat in prison it's the third time I was in prison. It was the worst time I've ever did in my life. I'm not as selfish as I used to be, because I know at one point it was just all about me. That's why I kept making the wrong choices. But I have a son now, that's just the biggest motivator. Because one thing
How old is he?
He's 5 now. His birthday was December 19th. I do have contact with him that's approved through my PO and everything. I'm actually supposed to see him this weekend.
Does he live here in town?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, you so cut me off that you didn't really know what I was gonna say. I had thought about maybe, my thought at first was to go ahead and approve you, but then maybe have you come back after your court date so that we know what happened. But I'm also not a big fan of making people come back, because now we have you say if we approve you and then you're established at this address, and then we make you come back and now we change our mind. It's not really fair to you, right? You've kind of gotten settled. So we've approved you in the past. You haven't had any issues. I'm not a fan of the revocation and absconding, let alone, having the firearm, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to make sure that, you know, all this other stuff is taken care of. So that's where I stand.
He's been through treatment, seems relatively stable. I know Jason, right? I think I'm leaning towards approval. So.
Okay. You?
Same here.
Okay.
Move to approve address specific.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. So you're good to go to 1139 Badger Street.
Thank you.
If you're gonna move from there, though, you gotta come back.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. Good
Well,
luck.
All right.
Okay, any other information or business we need to discuss?
New members?
Yeah.
Yeah, new members.
So we've got Jessica Henderson on Zoom and Brian Skoletsky here in person. They are going to be full-time members, and Alex is shifting into the alternate role.
Oh, okay,
So,
wonderful.
We'll be in touch with Jessica and Brian to try to set up some crash course on on SORB and what to expect and what standards to consider and those types of things. So
I never got a crash course.
you never got a crash course.
I didn't either.
Me neither.
I think they were appointed during COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't though.
Yeah.
You've been on for what, 15 years?
Yeah, a really long time.
Yeah, I couldn't have given you a crash
No.
course.
Neither one of us were here.
Right, I know.
I think back then it was a whole crash course, the whole process.
Yeah.
But yeah, some have an onboarding meeting of some sort and officially welcome them in after they're on the schedule to be appointed next Tuesday at the
Okay.
council meeting. So
Good,
not official yet, but thanks for joining.
yeah,
Yes.
Thanks for volunteering.
absolutely.
Can I
Do-
be included in the crash course?
Sure.
From what you saw today, I mean, do you have questions or?
I have a lot of general questions, like how many people are coming that are living there that haven't been approved? Or
Ooh.
A fair number.
Yeah. We had it for a while there, I think, I would say early fall, where the police did like raids. And so.
They
They were
weren't
just
doing
doing
raids, they
check-ins.
were doing compliance.
Okay, sorry, Lieutenant.
Spreadsheet and they were checking.
Yeah, where yes, you know, checking compliance, and we had quite a few that were coming before us at that time. But it's really kind of tapered off at this moment.
I
do you
think
tend
those
to
that
find
did.
out, like, if people don't follow what they're supposed to be doing as far as the sexual registry board, or if they're reconvicted, or to know how you're making your decisions going forward, or?
Yeah, I don't think we really ever know if they're successful or not successful.
Unless they have to come back in front of us.
Yeah, unless they come back before. Like, that's why, you know, like I asked this last guy, like, well, what have you been doing since 2018, since you haven't been here, right? A lot of times in my mind, it's, you've been incarcerated, but what for, right? So sometimes those kind of questions you can kind of figure out that way.
Well, and Mr. Stevens, we hadn't seen him for years, but he's been at that same address.
Back and
all the
forth,
time.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And do most people have some insight into what happened? Like, I was kind of amazed at how some of these people didn't have much insight into why they were convicted, or?
Yeah, I think today was very unique. One, anybody that's been here multiple times, Dan provides us the packet, which kind of summarizes every time they've been here before us. Maybe why they were denied, maybe why, you know, they were approved. So sometimes we'll just skip that because we've been able to read it ahead of time, and is there really a need to have them go through it when we've already been able to read it? But I mean, you will see some people who will give you every detail right down to, you know,
Dory.
yeah, versus the some going, I don't remember anything. And some of those are probably pretty legit because some of them could have happened in, and I think we've had some from like the 70s and 80s that they were convicted of.
Mr. Stevens was 1998.
Yeah.
And I tried getting the criminal complaint, and the DA's office requested it, but hadn't received it. They requested it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Mr. O'Deal, I got what I could get.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, that was at least helpful, but, yeah, so sometimes people just don't remember that far back everything, you know, they might remember a little bit of what happened, but not maybe as specific as we want. And you'll hear us, well, first of all, you'll know I talk a lot. But I will
figured
ask.
that out already.
You learned that already? You know, we ask a lot of questions just to try to see like, okay, how did they interpret this, or what was their thought process? I was going to go somewhere else with that too.
Is there remorse?
Yes.
What was going on in their life at the
Yeah,
time?
Yes.
The ordinance directs you to consider whether they show remorse, whether they are rehabilitated, and what the likelihood is that they may reoffend. So those are kind of the guidelines that the ordinance sets, like charges the board with, are those criteria. So any questions that you have that are probative or relevant to those considerations.
We could probably let Lieutenant know.
Lieutenant Allen, you can go if you want, sorry.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
And this is Jessica. I didn't really have any questions. I did work with the sex offender program with the Chapter 980 sex offenders. I was a case manager with them for about a year. And so I knew when they had got placed, I had never experienced this part of that, so.
Okay. Do you do that, did you do it through Attic or did you do it through Lutheran Social Services?
I did it through Matt Talbot.
Oh, okay.
It was between, I think, Lutheran Social Services and Attic or somewhere. We were right before Attic. It was 2017 to 2018. Nope, yep, 2017 to 2018.
Okay. So I think you'll be kind of a lot like I worked with those individuals myself. I supervised them back in the community. And I did that for probably, I would say, well over 10 years. 2017 is when I probably gave it up. So I knew when these individuals would go for, say, lie detector tests, what kind of questions they would ask and the treatment that they would go through. So sometimes I will ask a lot of those questions. You know, what are your triggers? What did the doctor say?
And I did recognize that when we were asking those questions. I was like, well, she sounds like the counselors you used to work with.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, from a lot of experience working with them that way. So, you know.
I definitely could tell.
Yeah,
We did work with the probation agents here, the ones that work specifically with the Chapter 980s that were here in Green Bay. And then we worked with the counselors that were either here in Green Bay or in Appleton.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, you know, those are the kind of questions a lot, especially when it comes to treatment, that we're going to be asking, just because we have that background and experience. You know, and I know, like, a lot of times we'll go and kind of ask more about the support system. What kind of support do you have here? You know, what kind of church do you belong to? And with Craig's background, you know, he does know a lot of the people that come before us because of his job. So sometimes he has to recuse himself from voting, but he also kind of has that knowledge of dealing with them that way. So it's kind of a ask questions, and you don't have to ask questions at all, because we'll make sure that they get covered. But the one thing that you may have noticed is, before we vote, we really kind of need to know how we feel about it, right? So we all should kind of have that discussion. Like, that's why you'll hear, you know, like I started, like, I'm not really comfortable, and these are my reasons why. You know, then we kind of work our way, like, I don't mind approving you based on this information. Because we just don't want to go in and provide a vote where nobody knows why we said yes or no.
Yeah, it's creating.
Exactly. Including the offender, I suppose, right? You know, including the person that's up in front of yourself.
Yeah, so the considerations that the board is making in case the offender does want to reapply in the future, they know what the concerns were of the board, and they do have a right, just like a decision of council, they could appeal this to the circuit court. So that helps us give a record to show that the board was making considerations that were relevant to the remorse, rehabilitation, likelihood to reoffend through that discussion period.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And is there a time frame before they can come before the board again, or?
So the criteria is whether their situation has substantially changed. So in a situation like this, if the board has that criminal complaint that lays out exactly what the allegations were, I think that that's a piece of information that does substantially change the consideration. Or if they came to the board and they didn't have any treatment or therapy, and they get denied, and that's something that's concerned. Well, then if they successfully complete a course, so whether that's 6 months, a year, however long it is, if they've gotten to the point where their situation has substantially changed, then they can come back in front of the board. Or if it's a different address, I mean, that's a different consideration. So they can come back in front of the board, but they can't just reapply to the same address with the same situation month after month.
Well, since I've been here, we only had one special call meeting in the middle of the month. How often does that normally happen?
Not very often,
No.
because the ordinance requires that when someone turns in an application, we have to hear that application within 45 days. So for a lot of people, that actually gives us 2 meetings that may fall within that time period. But we usually can get everybody in. So if we don't have quorum, if we have to reschedule, if there are people who are would be outside of the 45 days, then we may need to do a special meeting. But
Now, occasionally I'll get an application like months before they're gonna get released from prison. And then I will reach out to the PO and say, hey, you're sending me this application in January, they're not scheduled for release till May. Is it okay if we get them on for April? Because
Yeah.
I know you don't wanna see
We
somebody
don't like
that's
to
not
see them
getting
that far in
out
advance.
in 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
So usually that's okay with the POs. They
Yeah.
just wanna get somebody in at least a month before they're released, so then they have a plan for where they're gonna go when they get
Right.
released. But I don't like to put them on too early.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
kind of
I don't
the
like that
exception
either.
of that 30 to 45
Mm-hmm.
day
Yep.
rule.
Yeah. Does that kind of help?
sure.
Good.
Welcome
Good,
aboard.
good. Yeah, welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, next meeting is February 19th.
Yep, and then I just need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
How come Rachel isn't in the camera?
I think it's the camera placement.
My feet are. My feet are.
There it is.
I heard the voice, but it's
Recording